Welcome, believers. Welcome, conspiracy theorists. Welcome to the wonderfully weird world of the Tinfoil Hat Fan Club, where we talk about all the batshit crazy stuff that goes on in the world, and there's loads in there, right? So we have been talking about Antarctica, a weird place full of mystery. And because it's so isolated and so cold and there's not a lot of people there, wouldn't it be a perfect place for an alien base? Wouldn't it? Hey. So, look, in October 2016, an international agreement was reached by 24 countries and the countries of the EU that 1.5 million square kilometres of the Ross Sea would be protected, right? This meant that not only was no commercial fishing allowed in the area, only vessels and people with exclusive permission were even allowed to enter the waters. Now, a noble endeavour, no doubt, given that the agreement was reached in order to protect wildlife and the environment from ruin. But to some, it simply put a huge portion of the waters around Antarctica off limits to the general public. Convenient, eh? Right, because 10 days prior to the announcement of this agreement on the 18th of October, WikiLeaks had released over 20 photographs of the area, right, of the Ross Sea area, with at least one of them appearing to show a strange flying object. The leaked pictures were part of the John Podesta email releases. Now, obviously you've got to ask yourself whether the pictures and indeed the leaked emails themselves are authentic or not is very much open to debate. But some theorists quickly spotted that certain numbers in the set of photographs are missing, as if they had been removed by somebody higher than Podesta before they came into his possession. What's interesting, isn't it? Because Podesta, I mean, do look into him. He was a massive UFO fan. He was even trying to convince Hillary Clinton to go out there and say, look, UFOs are real. He was well into disclosure. So if he did get those photos and he's a high up ranking government official, someone higher than him found them first and deleted them. Makes you think, doesn't it, right? The Ross Sea and the waters surrounding this area of Antarctica are said by some researchers to be home to various underground bases and even the site of conflict between humans and an unknown alien race. So, is it purely coincident that these same waters are now only to be ventured into by just a select few? Is it coincidence? Is it? You know what I mean? So, the previous year, there were also reports of strange vehicles that had been sighted in the same area as a reported increase in UFO activity. Next to these mysterious vehicles, Google Earth captured what appeared to be a saucer-shaped craft that had crashed into the icy surface. What made the presence of the vehicles even more mysterious is that they didn't appear to have any track markings of their progress to the present position, which incidentally seemed to point to the crashed craft. So how did they get there? You know, and any conspiracy theorist will go, it's a bit strange, isn't it? I will try and find the photos, but I don't think I can. Had they been engaged in battle, or were they themselves strange aircraft that had settled there following the crash landing of the downed object in a rescue mission? What is even more bizarre is that these images first appeared in 2011. They simply disappeared and were not seen again, nor were any markers of their movements. So that's strange, isn't it? Right? So I don't know what to say about that one, really. So, but Antarctica is a strange place, and it has many strange things going on, eh? It isn't the first time that there have been claims of strange activity and ancient pyramids buried under thousands, if not millions of years of snow and ice in remote places, right? So there was one, wasn't there, in Atlanta, sorry. So in 1992, Channel 13 Anchorage reported on a huge pyramid structure that had been discovered and buried under the ground near Mount McKinley in Alaska. The discovery was made purely by accident when scientists noticed a huge structure as they set up seismic recording equipment due to an upcoming nuclear test by the Chinese government. It's quite interesting, this one. I have done a video on it, right? The news report was largely unnoticed by the vast majority and was not reported anywhere other than the immediate local area that Channel 13 normally broadcast to. So it wasn't, it didn't go far. However, a retired United States military officer had seen the news report, and 2 decades later, he sought the help of cattle mutilation and UFO expert Linda Moulton Howe in investigating the claims, right? So I'm going to briefly go over it again, right? According to Moulton Howe's research and subsequent investigations, the pyramid dates back to antiquity and is tens of thousands of years old, and like claims of other pyramids around the world, was built to harness and generate power. So what do you think of that in Alaska, right? Since the claimed existence of the Black Pyramid, and you can Google Earth the coordinates, I would do that if I was you, there have been many people, all right, they're not really telling their names, and they do want to keep secret, who have also come forward with information, right? So, a man who claimed he was the adopted son of a retired Western electrical engineer stated that his adoptive father had told him stories of a dark or black pyramid that he had worked on in Alaska. His father had helped to install an electrical system inside the ancient structure in the early 60s. Another person by the name of Bruce Pearson claimed that his father had been told by pilots that he worked with at the site that the pyramid was not made by man. Makes you wonder, doesn't it? Okay. So look, obviously we have covered that Alaska pyramid. Do you think it's real? I do think it's real. You know, now many people with Linda Moulton Howe, when you're a famous UFO researcher, they are going to try and rubbish her. Now, my theory is on any good UFO website and any good UFO chat, you know, if you're on Facebook, whatever it is, I reckon there's stooges in there. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if even the government went, right, we're going to infiltrate all these chats and we're going to make them look stupid, you know, and that is their job. You know, and eventually people go, do you know what, I'm fed up with this UFO website page. We're meant to be believers. Don't give up on it, man. Just ignore that sort of stuff. You know, they could be stooges, couldn't they? Right? So we're going to talk about Linda Moulton Howe. Now, according to an article by Jonathan Gray in the World Education Research Limited newspaper, Archaeological Newsflash, a recovered video filmed by a Californian TV crew contains footage and proof of a huge archaeological dig occurring on the southernmost continent. Now, this is in Antarctica, right? The Atlantis TV crew, who are still missing and have been since 2002, presumably in Antarctica, filmed the footage. The article states that the US government has already taken steps to stop the video being aired on any platform. And they certainly would do that, wouldn't they? They would stop that, right? Now, according to legal representatives of Atlantis TV, 2 US Navy officers had discovered the tape and made a report to the scientific research base at Mikado Station, Antarctica, right? They claimed the tape showed spectacular ruins as well as an archaeological activity being carried out by the US military. However, scientists and witnesses at the research facility stated before the tape was taken from the 2 men and examined, a helicopter carrying a full unit of Navy SEALs landed outside the base and took the Navy officers and the video into their custody. That's certainly silencing it, eh? Now, perhaps predictably, perhaps not, the US Navy and officials of the US Navy Support Task Force who operated in Antarctica both deny any knowledge of the incident or of having the video or the missing TV crew in their possession. But the TV crew are missing, all right? So I don't know what sort of wildlife's in Antarctica. I don't know myself, but if there was like a bear or any sort of animal that attacked the crew, you would see blood, wouldn't you? So, but they've just gone missing. Now, as with other such claims, this story should perhaps be treated with a pinch of salt, but it is worth making note of given the apparent increase in activity in the region. Right, it is claimed by some, and including the controversial but respected Edgar Cayce, that the Great Sphinx was built by those that had escaped northward from Atlantis following its tragic downfall and destruction. He also claimed that under the Sphinx's paw sits the mythical Hall of Records, and I've heard that before, right? A place where knowledge from the beginning of time resides, including the instructions of how the pyramids were built, right? Because I don't know what side of the fence you are on. Do you think the Egyptians built the pyramids? Because I don't. There is no way those Egyptians built that pyramid, right? It's far too sophisticated, far too sophisticated. I mean, we all know how sophisticated the pyramids are. There's no way the Egyptians built those, mate. It was built by an ancient civilization, but who were they, right? If those survivors of Atlantis had been responsible for influencing, even building the pyramids in ancient Egypt, might some Atlanteans have escaped to other parts of the globe also? If so, might this explain why pyramids are found all over the planet? That is a fantastic idea, isn't it? I'm going to buy that. I'm buying it, right? So the Atlantis got destroyed. There were survivors. They staggered all over the planet, right? But then they settled and started building stuff. I love that idea, right? If there is any degree of truth to that, it is worth bearing in mind Case was correct about a great many things. And I think if you look into this bloke, this Edgar Case, he's a psychic, right? So then it would make sense that the pyramid existed on Atlantis itself. With this in mind, and given the apparent pyramids that can be seen today on the continent, might what we know as Antarctica today once have been Atlantis. And we have covered that, haven't we? We have covered it, right? So was Antarctica Atlantis, right? One piece of evidence that seems to support this is the Perry-Reese map that seemed to show Antarctica without ice covering its land hundreds of years before it was first discovered by humans, right? The Perry-Reese map, and I'll give you I have done a thing on it, but I'll give you a quick, we'll quickly cut cap on it, right? The map was discovered by author and crustal displacement theorist Charles Hapgood in 1960, hidden away in Congress archives. It was drawn up in 1531 and contains an area of land called Terra Australis that has a similar shape to the ice mass of Antarctica. It also contains mountain markings that match mountains in Antarctica today when they were viewed with NASA's radar imaging. Even if Antarctica had been discovered in the 1500s, it would have been covered completely in ice, which suggests that the origin to this map was drawn up thousands of years ago and then copied in the 1500s. Or is it the original? And that question needs to be asked about the technology used to make it, eh? So as I say, I have looked into this. Please check it out if you can. Hapgood himself had theorised that Antarctica had once been much further north and in a warmer climate before a shift in the Earth's crust moved its location to its current position and plunging it into icy conditions at the same time. Now, this is a question, isn't it? Might this be the disaster that was said to have destroyed Atlantis? If the icy world was once the lost continent, then world leaders, both political and religious, will have an intense interest in it and the secrets and technology it may still hold. Now, whether these secrets and technologies will be made to us, the public, is another matter, isn't it? Right? So, quickly recap on that then. So imagine if Atlantis got shifted on a crust displacement issue, right? Because that would wipe out, that would pretty much wipe out the Earth, wouldn't it, really? It would cause seas, floods, stuff like that. And the survivors scattered around the globe, and it ended up being Antarctica. It's a great theory, isn't it? It's a great theory, right? On January the 23rd, Emmy award-winning journalist Linda Moulton Howe, and I'll stick her picture there because I'm a massive fan of her, right, released the video testimony of a new whistleblower discussing his highly classified mission to a large buried structure found in Antarctica, right? The whistleblower claims that in a classified mission conducted in 2003, he entered inside a very large octagon-shaped structure located near the Beardmore Glacier that extended down deep into the glacier's icy interior, right? So, Linda Moulton Howe, massive fan, right? And the reason we talked about Antarctica, Atlantis and stuff like that is because of this, right? This whistleblower, the whistleblower is a retired US Navy SEAL who was first interviewed by Linda Moulton Howe on July the 19th, 2018. Now, he used the pseudonym Spartan 1. Now, in Howe's YouTube video, and please check that out, where his face is shadowed and his voice is altered to protect his identity, Howe says that she personally vetted Spartan 1, who provided ample documentation to say that his military career was true. Now, previously, Linda Moulton Howe has released the testimony of another military whistleblower called Brian, who was a Navy flight engineer who had flown numerous support missions with the Antarctic Development Squadron from 83 to 97. Now, he said he witnessed a number of anomalies pointing to hidden facilities or bases located deep under the Antarctic ice sheets. He says he witnessed silver flying discs over the trans-Antarctic mountains, not all that far, as Howe pointed out, from where the Navy SEAL had conducted his mission, right? So, in 2003, a US Navy SEAL Special Operations Team travelled to Antarctica to investigate a perfectly geometric, eight-sided octagon structure discovered by ground-penetrating radar near Beardmore Glacier, about 93 miles from the American McMurdo Station, okay? Another previous team of engineers and scientists had dug out the top layer of one octagon made of a pure black substance that was built on top of two more black octagonal structures that went down deep into the 2 mile thick ice. And as I say, bear it in mind, right, it wouldn't have been ice then, would it? So, if it is Atlantis, right? In the video, the Navy SEAL, in Linda Moulton Howe's video, the Navy SEAL Spartan 1 described the launch of his mission from an aircraft carrier voyaging near West Antarctica's Ross Sea. Now, we know now that Ross Sea, you are not allowed in there, right? He was taken by helicopter to McMurdo Station, the largest US base in Antarctica, and then taken by ground transport to the structure's location. Now, he says, right, he described entering a doorway approximately 50 feet under the ice. He estimated the walls of the structure as about 6 to 10 metres and the ceiling height of roughly 7 to 9 metres. He said that the walls, ceilings and floors were made of a black basalt material that looked shiny, black and marble-like, right? The interior was heated to around 68 to 72 degrees and was also lighted by a lime green source projected from the ceiling and the floor. But he did not see any heating or lighting equipment, which added to the mystery of the buried structure. Right? Now, only part of the structure he stated had been uncovered so far by the archaeological team, with the rest buried under the ice and extending far below. Now, ground-penetrating radar had shown the structure to be an octagon in shape and covering an area of 62 acres. He also described the walls and doors as being covered by hieroglyphs that were about 8 inches, 20 centimetres high, and about 2 inches, 5 centimetres deep. The hieroglyphs were neither Egyptian nor Mayan, but appeared similar to both in terms of depicting animals and strange symbols. So, significantly, or not, right, one of the symbols were very similar to the black sun image used by the Nazi SS, and then we'll go now back to Nazi bases in Antarctica, right, who had a large version of it built on the floor of their headquarters at Wellersbrook Castle. So Spartan 1 explained that part of his mission was to transport scientists who would document the buried structure and the hieroglyphic symbols by taking photos and making drawings. he said that his team had to leave one of the scientists behind who insisted that more time was needed to do a proper inventory of what was discovered. Right? So this is this Spartan 1 telling Linda Moulton how. Okay. Now, obviously, he's called himself Spartan 1 because he doesn't want to be recognised. Now, Spartan 1 was told and believed that the structure had been built by a human-looking group of extraterrestrials who were involved in the genetic engineering of humanity. Again, right, when you tell these stories, they all seem to coincide, don't they? So the genetic engineering of humanity, are they still doing that now with, like, abductions? You know, the story about women being abducted and their fetus, you know, their little babies being removed. It goes down a rabbit hole, doesn't it? Right, so Spartan 1's testimony is very significant since it provides a rare eyewitness account of what is actually inside one of the buried structures, whose age stretches back into antiquity. You cannot date it, right? Linda Moulton Howe's previous Antarctica eyewitness, Brian, did not actually go to see or go inside one of the artefacts. The closest he got was when he saw a large hole going deep inside the South Pole while flying over restricted airspace. And I remember him telling the story of this, right? He flied over restricted airspace to catch someone who caught, who had serious burns. Got really told off for it. He wasn't allowed to fly into that restricted space on the way back when he picked this poor person who had all the burns on him, and the bloke did pass away, apparently. Right, to date, only 2 other whistleblowers, insiders, have come forward to share their account of being taken inside or eyewitnessing the ancient artefacts buried deep under Antarctic ice sheet. These are Corey Good and Pete Peterson, who both say they witnessed some of the buried artefacts during their respective visits there. So, look, buried artefacts under Antarctica. I'm loving this, right? Now, Good claims to have been taken to Antarctica in early 2006 and 2017, where he saw secret bases and the remains of an ancient civilization buried deep below the ice sheets. He says he witnessed some bodies of human-alien hybrids who were part of the genetic experiment conducted by a tall, human-looking extraterrestrial race thousands of years ago. He described 3 very large motherships buried under the ice that were used to start a global civilization with Antarctica as a hub. It's fascinating, man. Peterson says that he was taken to Antarctica during classified missions where he was tasked with the job of understanding the advanced technologies found near 3 motherships, one or more of which he witnessed during his mission. Peterson's testimony corroborates Good's account of an ancient extraterrestrial base that was used as a hub for global civilization. Interesting, man, right? This raises some intriguing questions, right? Was the black sun symbol a pictorial representation of an ancient global civilization where the South Pole was the hub with spirals going out to its distant colonies? Now, in the book, Antarctica's Hidden History, I present evidence that German nationalists using the black sun symbol established a colony in Antarctica where they built spacecrafts for deep space colonisation. That's a tricky one to swallow, isn't it? Right? Well, maybe they stumbled across it. They stumbled across these 3 ancient spaceships that were buried in the ice. I don't think they ever done that, though, because otherwise they would have won the war, wouldn't they? I don't know. Now, according to Linda Moulton Howe's analysis, the structure witnessed by Spartan 1 dates as far back as 33 million years ago, which is the general date conventional geologists give for when Antarctica was last ice-free. Now, Antarctica's Hidden History, contrary evidence has presented that Antarctica was as ice-free as recently as 6,000 years ago, which is approximately the date for the destruction of Atlantis, according to Plato. This raises the question, how old are the ruins being currently discovered in Antarctica? What do you think? What do you think, man? I mean, do you know what? I'm going to believe Linda Moulton Howe. And I'm also going to believe Spartan 1. Why not? Why not? Why not? We're never going to know the truth. You never do in the UFO community, right? I did a story about Admiral Byrd, right? And he flew into like should we say a hole in a mountain, right? And there was a city in there, and he was guided by these UFOs. And someone quite rightly said in the comments, they said, "Yeah, but wasn't that diary, proved to be fake?" And you go, mate, the UFO community is so shady, so misdirectional, so full of like fakes, flounders, and government agencies that you really never know what to believe. So I said, look, if the government was to say, look, that diary's a fake, then that's going to throw question into everything, isn't it? Right. So, but what do you think anyway? What do you think of the Antarctica? I would personally check out Linda Moulton Howe's YouTube channel and watch it. It's fascinating. It is. So, anywho, this is Antarctica. And I think I'm going to finish with that, I think. And next week, we'll continue with Linda Moulton Howe, but we'll talk about maybe cattle mutilation. Don't like that, Sue. Really don't like that. But cattle mutilation is that's another thing, right? Now, the CIA is saying that they did it, right? And then kind of makes sense. Say, like, for instance, if they were looking for, like, I don't know, a cattle-related disease, if you know what I mean, right, and they had worried that it was returning, they couldn't go to a farmer and go, yeah, can I have your cattle? Because it would ask too many questions. So they just basically nicked them, did their experiments and dumped them back. And that kind of does make sense a little bit, rather than aliens doing it. But then I reckon if the government were going to nick cattle, they just wouldn't return them. They would just keep them, wouldn't they? So anywho, this was the Tinfoil Hat Fan Club. Thanks for sticking around. I really appreciate it. And I will see you next week. Thanks very much.